as well. So without further ado, let's kick it to you, Wayne.
Hey, thank you guys. Really excited to be here. As I said, my name is Wayne Rasor. I'm a Director of Digital Share Technology at Fast Signs International and on the board of a great organization with the Digital Signage Federation. So I'm also on the education committee, so we kind of sort of work through all the education deals and education strategies, and we're working with VIX on that as well. So we're going to try to go through Digital Signage 201. This is a hard subject to cover, sort of a general subject to cover in 30 minutes, but we're going to try. So we're going to dive right into this and sort of talk about what this is. But let me talk about what the DSF is a little bit real quick. Digital Signage Federation is an independent, not-for-profit organization of experts that work for the advancement of the industry. We provide education, networking, general advocacy, and it was created in 2010. So just give you guys a short little history on there of who we are and what we do. So what is digital signage? Some of you may already know this, some of you may not, but the general consensus is that its displays are networked together, electronically connected from a central server to be able to have a target audience, update in real time, playback content to be dynamic, and it is definitely a disruptive technology right now to traditional signage. And the goal is to drive engagement. So that's kind of what we're gonna dive into. I want to show some examples of all the vertical markets, which this is really sort of funny to do because almost every vertical market is diving into this. So to give you an idea, education, for wayfinding, class schedules, news and information, alerts, especially as schools are starting to get going again, this is going to be even more primary. So healthcare, again, wayfinding, you're starting to see that to be a trend with a lot of them. Donation boards, give physician profiles, patient tracking, those kinds of things. So healthcare has been a massive industry shifting over to digital signage. Corporate communications and elevators. Providing that corporate message, also KPI metrics, supply chain manufacturing. This can get into even back-end manufacturing type things. Financial and banking. You can provide promotional information, rates as far as all of their different loan options, news and information for what's going on in the financial world. This has really been a huge uptick in what we've seen in financial. Retail, probably one of the largest areas out there for advertising, experiential, just creating an ambiance in stores. This is probably one of the largest categories of digital signage as far as what's really coming to play in the market. Restaurants, menu boards have probably been one of the biggest as far as restaurants for quick serve restaurants, showing specials, reviews, again, experiential, and just creating an ambiance, changing the way restaurants feel and how they look, and do they look more modern and feel more modern when you walk into them, and how you interact with technology within these. Houses of worship, so video feeds. Houses of worship become a massive industry as far as they are a business of themselves, news and information, community service announcements, even almost live events, and that's sort of what we're going to next is stadiums and venues, wayfinding, real-time transit information, advertising is a massive part of stadiums and venues. And houses of worship almost sort of play into that as well because they're almost their own stadium and venue as well. Transportation, probably the final one, and this is just a few of them. There are more out there, but interactive maps, and as transportation, as travel starts to open back up, real-time information, real-time as far as what's changing, advertising also a huge one in airports and in bus stations, and then news alerts for what's going on, especially in a changing world like we're in today. So these are just some of them that are really starting to gravitate in and pull in digital signage. So if you get nothing more out of this talk, you really want to get the fact that you want to know your goals. You want to know why you're doing this. When you're going in, you're trying to start building a digital signage deployment. If you don't know why you're doing it, you almost need to just go home. This needs to be defined. Too many times customers are coming in and want to know, well, what size screen do I want, and where am I going to put it? Those are great questions, but the why. All right, what are we trying to communicate? What is your goal? Are we trying to sell something? What does success look like in this deployment? Is this a memorable experience? Are we trying to go to a specific audience? Do we want to provide certain information? Do we want to lower perceived wait times? Do we want to share internal data? All those kinds of things. Why are we doing this? This is the most important thing. If you get nothing more out of this, this is the one thing you need to get, because this has to be done. Oop, too many. So specify your needs. What's your target audience? Figure out your organization. What are we trying to communicate? How many locations? How many displays? What's our overall content strategy? What's our budget? How is our network going to affect this? And what's it going to sort of taxing is going to take on our network? And how long is it going to take to deploy it? So understand what all we're going for before we start to dive in to create a network. And then measuring success. Too many people go on ROI, return on investment. You know, what is the money I'm going to make back on this? But in digital signage, many times it is more an ROO. It's return on objective. What is my network's performance against the objectives? What does my content strategy look like? What does it look like if I'm going to succeed? If this is going to do what I set out when I made that goal of what I'm going to create, what does that look like? And that has to do with performance reporting and just figuring out, did I make a success? Did I do what I set out to do? So if you can't improve it if you can't measure it. Media players are a huge part of this, and media players control how this goes. They're the connection between what Jeff just talked about in the cloud, but connecting through the cloud and bringing it to the displays. This is the whole deal that goes in between that. It stores all the local content, connects to your content management system, keeps track of all your plays, reports all your deals. It does your interrupt for emergency applications. It stores and logs content. It can collect data from cameras. There's a lot of things that they can do. They're a part of this. And so when you're selecting these, there's quite a few different categories, and we've sort of grown in these categories over the years. So you've got external media players, which are, I would say, mostly your more typical, where you have a standalone media player that is plugged into a screen. But we also now have system on chip, where that media player is embedded inside the screen. You've got less hardware to deal with. You got to figure out whether that fits what your system is going to be able to do. We also get into open pluggable specifications, so OPS displays. We're able to insert a display inside it, then we can change it out. Or even smart display modules, and those have gotten to be where smart displays can actually connect in with a CMS. So all of these are part of your selection, but I will tell you that the content management system honestly needs to be decided before you decide on your media players. This is where we need to figure out how things are going to be controlled, how many displays, geographical spread. Are we doing a local server? Are we doing a cloud-based? Jeff had talked about this just a little bit ago about the cloud and how this is done. Typical content require your display resolutions, your operating systems, multi-zones, all of these things. What type of CMS is playable? What type of content? What type of data am I bringing in? Do I need backups? Do I need multiple users? All of these things are considered. So once you start to figure out your content management system, the media player sort of takes care of itself, because different content management systems are linked to different kinds of media players. And there's some options in those, but this is where you need to decide what is it that's going to control everything, because this really comes down to how do I need to manage things, and what are the different types of facets that I need to bring in to make this work and to achieve my goal. So what are we going to ask when we're selecting a CMS? We asked this question before, will the network expand? And if so, how's it going to expand? Are we going to do more players in a single location, or are we going to do more players in all over the country or all over the world? What's the purpose of the network or the content change? Are we going to start out with maybe a pilot program with this, but eventually we want it to be able to do something else? We want it to be able to handle some other kind of content. That needs to be considered up front, because you don't want to be switching over an entire content management system in the middle because you decided you want to do something else. It's sort of it's the begin with the end in mind. Know what your end strategy is going to be. Will emerging technologies impact how you might communicate? This is hard to figure out because it's sort of like a crystal ball. Technology moves really, really fast, and it changes almost on an hour-by-minute basis. But starting to think about, as these things start to come in, how we might want to utilize those, and is the system we're putting in place going to work with that? And then who's going to upload the content, and more, not just who, but also where are they going to be? Are they all centrally located in one location? Are they all going to be across different locations? These are some of the things you need to ask when you're sort of selecting that CMS. So I mentioned it a little bit ago on controlling content as far as a on-premise based network where you've got a server that's on-premise and it's shooting out to all of the different displays and all the different media players. This is usually something that's done when you have security restrictions. You're in a government installation or military or financial institution. Typically premise-based and on-premise-based networks, that's normally the choice for them because they're able to lock the network down much more and have control over that server that's in there. However, cloud services, a cloud-based network where essentially there is no server sitting in a location, it is just going to be a cloud. The user can be anywhere that's managing the content, and the displays can be anywhere. So cloud-based is where all this is going, and there are ways to make cloud-based situations work within security restricted locations. It's a matter of working with the firewall and with the IT to figure out to make sure that all of the media players can connect with the cloud servers out there. So content zones, we talk about, this is another part of the CMS as far as, do I want to split this thing into zones? And I'll say this, this is one of those deals of just because I can split something into 28 different zones does not mean that I should. Sometimes less is more. So think about that, but if content zones is a requirement, if I need to be able to put a couple different things on the screen at one time and be able to change different zones out, then let's make sure that that's part of the CMS selection. Security is another problem, and we've seen this in the news over the past couple of years where things show up on screens that really should not be on screens in general public, and we've seen this multiple times. So security is a concern, and that needs to be dealt with, and it needs to be considered when you're setting up the entire network to make sure that it is secure, your users are secure, and access is only to the people that are able to manage it. So we're going to talk about content elements, different kinds of content that can go on screens. Templates are really what a lot of people talk about. I want to be able to do templates. I want to be able to set up a template that sort of manages itself. And when I say that, I mean where we can automatically connect things to different data sources, such as sports scores. I can automatically pull those sports scores. No one's having to go and manually update that when that next team scores. It automatically is pulled in. Probably one of the most common ways of this is menu prices and menu boards. So being able to connect to either a spreadsheet or a database, or even connect directly to a POS system. So that when the restaurant updates their prices in their POS system, for their cash registers, it also updates on their menu boards at the same time. So much less work. Sales results from tracking software. So someone doesn't have to go in and manually put that in to be able to say, I want that on the screens. It automatically pulls from what you're already reporting. Call center hold times, being able to manage employee of the month, name a department, or even YouTube videos like a YouTube live stream from the CEO of a company out to all their employees. All of these things, as long as they're set up correctly in the beginning within a template, they just sort of manage themselves. And so there's a little bit of work done up front, but it works without having to have ongoing management. Another content element is video. So there are a lot of different video file types, and I put in here HD, 4K, 8K. You even got 16K and even 24K. I have seen screens that are like that. Is it necessary? Do you need that kind of resolution? If you do, that's fine, but you need to make sure you're considering bandwidth because your network is going to need to be able to handle that kind of bandwidth. So, do I need to do videos? There's definitely different codecs and different video files that some work better in streaming and some don't. So, and the bandwidth is definitely something to consider when you're talking about resolution. So your content elements as far as images, and images work great. A lot of people think that well, if it's a digital screen, then it should move, and part of that's true, but there are other times just a simple image will do it. Whether you're doing a simple creative as far as something as basic as PowerPoint, or whether you're doing something a really fancy creative, or whether you're bringing in different templates or employee of the months, menu inserts, food specials, insert logos, those kinds of things. Images are all part of it, and so using those images wisely and using them sparingly sometimes to bring forth the static information. Another part of content is also what we're really going into today is HTML5. At some point will be HTML6, but for programming for rich content. So being able to bring in dynamic and live content that you'd see on the web, whether it's videos, whether it's moving graphics, whether it's things that interface with the other data, RSS feeds for being able to put up automatic feeds of what's going on out there in the world or what's going on in a particular data source. So this has really become popular as far as what we're putting on screens because it can be much more dynamic, whereas videos, you have to go out and render those. And videos work because there's things you can do with videos you can't do with web programming, whereas HTML5 web programming, there's different things you can do with that you can't do with videos as far as update them regularly. So, and data, everybody talks about big data. This is something that's a subject quite a bit. But being able to connect that data into screens, being able to make screens to where they are live, they are relevant, especially for emergency information. Being able to say, hey, there's a fire in the building. Hey, there's a, God forbid, shooter on site, whatever it may be. Being able to get that data in and get it into the screens quickly and efficiently. And when you're talking about managing the content, you've got to look at your employee availability. Who is going to be managing this? What is their workflow going to look like? Figuring out how is that process flow going to move as far as, do I need to have one person creating content and another person approving content and another person actually formatting it and posting it? There's a lot of different parts as far as how it's going to work through, and this needs to be thought about in the beginning process of these screens have to update. It is not a deal of that they can update, it's that they have to update. So figuring out how that's going to be managed and what that workflow is going to look like and who is going to do it and make sure that is brought into their job and their daily tasks is definitely a consideration. So the other one is figuring out emergency messaging. I talked about this a few minutes ago. Failure is not an option. When you're talking about something that is time critical, whether it's severe weather, whether it's a danger on site, whether it's something that, especially in a COVID world, there's information that's got to get out there, and it has to be on time, it has to be timely, and it has to be easy to trigger. So some CMS platforms have that, some don't. This is something that if this is a crucial deal for you, it needs to be considered it needs to be part of your requirements. And then managing the network. There's nothing worse than having a display that actually goes down, or you see the blue screen of death, or you see an error screen up there. You want to make sure that these can be monitored and that you're able to manage them and figure out when screens are up and when screens are down. There's also proof of play reporting to make sure that the screens are up and not just the up, but what are they playing? Do I need to have a list of what's going to be playing and how many different items or ads played at different times? So content, honestly, is the juice that runs all of this. It is the gasoline that fires all the engines. So if you don't have it, and if it's not good, it just doesn't work. So there are some, I want to go over a few tips and a few ideas of ways to make content work and for it to actually achieve an objective. General guidelines are keep it short. So keep it simple, choose the right font, different contrasting colors. There's a reason that a lot of places use yellow and red for colors. A lot of brands do because they work. I've got down here 2.5 seconds. If they can't read the message in 2.5 seconds, it's probably too long. So think about when you're reading something that it needs to be short and simple and to the point. Use a strong call to action. I'm going to talk about call to actions here in a little bit as well. Images can do it a lot, so choose your image wisely and keep the core message of the branding on at all times. And always think of the viewer. Think if someone is looking at the screen, can they get the idea very quickly? There's an example. There was a billboard up. This was years ago, and it just had it was a yellow background. It had morning on it, and the O was actually a Cheerio, and so that's all it was one word, morning. and you got the idea. This is Cheerios, and I got it by reading one word. It's an idea of how quickly can I get it across. Design basic ideas. So make use of white space. Go to google.com. There's a ton of white space on it. So there's reasons for that. They want to keep it very simple, to the point. They want you to go to one place. Make sure your corporate branding is on there at all times. Keep a call to action. Call to actions are a huge deal. If I'm looking at this, what is it you want me to do with it? Use a background that contrasts the rest of the elements. Sometimes it doesn't have to be a photo. It's nice to have a photo, but sometimes it just needs to be a solid color. The 3x5 rule either leaves 3 lines of text with 5 words or less, or do 5 lines of text with 3 words or less. Try to keep it in there. Messages with less than 250 characters are most effective, and even less than that would be even better. The fewer words, the better. Content's purpose is engagement. All right, that is your goal. So you are trying to keep a relevant content. You're trying to keep bold, solid colors, high contrast. You want to make some things move, and the things you want to make move are the things you want to draw attention to. So sometimes having a static image, but yet certain parts of it move, that's where I want to attract your attention. You'll see menu boards do this. They'll attract you to just certain lines on the menu. It's not because it's their most popular item, it's because it's their most profitable item. They are very good at what they do. Flashing or alternating text to be able to draw attention. Our brains look for movement. Our brains look for animation, and that is the way that we have that we've always been through this. So intriguing imagery and make the catch and make the copy and the text catchy. Try to find some little slogan. So when you're laying out, when you think about how you're laying your screen out, look at your visual order, your hierarchy. Again, keep white space out there. Limit the amount of text. We've talked about this a couple different times. Support with an image or logo. Images speak 1,000 words. That's been a long-standing saying that it is very true. Important standout using a different size and colors, and again, keep a simple background. So when you're laying it out, make it simple, make it pop, but make sure your message is coming through. And that message is your call to action. All right, tell them what to do. You're putting this up on screen. What are you wanting them to do? Ideally, start with a verb. It says enter today. So you want to start with what is your message? Make it simple and strong. Be specific about the dates. Increase a sense of urgency. Make them think that I got to do it right now. Make it big. Keep it static, and give it a little bit of space. KPIs. So you want to increase visits to a website. You want to increase Twitter or Facebook followers. You want to attain a certain brand awareness. You want to increase signups. These are all part of your goals, but you need to be able to track it. What we're putting up there, are we achieving all these things? Are we achieving our net promoter score? Are we increasing the number of customer satisfaction survey results? These are the kinds of things that we want to make sure that we're getting across. And that we're tracking to make sure that we're successful in all this. Context-aware content, so day parting, things like being able to have a breakfast menu in the morning and a dinner menu at night, real-time insertion into playlists to match the demographics of the audience. This gets into sort of tracking who's looking at the screens and how long they look at it, what do they think of it, were they happy about it. Be able to put limited time offers and say, hey, we've only got 2 pork chops left. That's where we're actually connecting in with data to know that this is live information that's up there. And maybe it's weather dependent. I've seen this a lot of places where they'll do, if it's cold outside, we're going to advertise hot drinks. And if it's hot outside, we're going to advertise cold drinks. If it's raining outside, we're going to talk about umbrellas and galoshes, those kinds of things. So there's ways to have content automatically show depending on a set number of conditions, sort of an if this then that. And event activation. If an audience hits a certain size, if you're looking at the audience and it hits a certain deal, then we do a free offer for something, as well as alerts and fire evacuation. So there's ways to connect to data and make things to where it's contextually relevant, and we make the content contextually relevant. We talked earlier about design zones, and your main zone. I would typically say you don't want to go above 3 or 4 zones. You want to keep it. You definitely want to keep it short and to the point. But your main zone is going to be your key messages, your paid advertisements. Your secondary zone might be for other key messages, just a little information, maybe some weather, and then your final one is information, so just your news, time, date, those kinds of things. So your different sizes of zones will be your different importance, but keep your main deal in your main zone. And you can see by looking at this image on here, you start to get into 4 and 5 zones, and it becomes a mess. So you want to try and keep it relevant, but you want to keep it to where it's poignant and primary to your message. We also talked about data integration a little bit ago, whether you're integrating with social media, an asset library, whether you're showing inventory levels, dashboards, web pages, spreadsheets, news and weather, calendars, licensed content, service desk, all these kinds of things. You want to be able to pull in that data, and being able to connect to it means that your screens will update more regularly without human intervention. Someone's not having to go in and actually manage that and change things in it. So this is really the way a lot of networks are moving forward, to be able to bring that data integration in, to be able to connect to those, so that much less interaction is needed. And finally, mobile and digital signage. Everyone's got a mobile device in their pocket or their purse, or on their person at somewhere. So being able to do gaming, be able to use QR codes, even text this to this number to enter this, or to even affect what's on the screen, or using wayfinding with QR codes or NFC tags. Just about all phones are enabled with this, and whether it's QR codes, SMS, NFC, any of those, this is the connection we're trying to get. How do I connect what's going on my device to what's going on up on the screen? This is sort of the pinnacle of what we're all trying to reach, because when you look at the value of a screen, as far as if you're looking at the monetary value of that viewership, that screen in your pocket is the most valuable screen. So if you can actually get content onto that screen, and you connect it with the screen that's installed or whatever your deployment, you've made a great connection. So this is actually the end. I didn't have an ending slide. This is actually the last of it, but I hope you guys enjoyed this. I tried to cover a lot of ground. There is actually a much broader and more detailed course in this that the DSF offers that gets much deeper into foundations, going into the hardware, displays, all those kinds of things. So if you're interested in that, reach out to the DSF, and we'll be happy to get you involved and to get you signed up for these other courses that are online. But this is just a little taste of what the DSF has in store for it. So, and with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you guys.
Great. Thank you so much, Wayne. That was, there was so much information. I really wish I had a pen and pad to take some notes, but I know that I'll be able to download the deck.
Slides are available.
You shared a lot of insights. Yes, exactly. Slides are available. Small plug. One of the things that I know we actually have a couple of questions here, and I want to take advantage of while you're here to talk to you a little bit about DSF and DSEG certifications. I got a question from Alan. Can you just speak to that a little bit, and maybe the importance of it, and anything that you would recommend as far as the certifications are concerned?
Education is paramount. I can't stress it enough. This is what I'm involved in with the DSF is what I do as the education committee. We have built a very robust curriculum. The DSEG certification is amazing for just being able to give you a great foundation of how digital signage works, and then we've got ongoing education for different little topics we say it's taught by members for members. So that's kind of the goal of it, is we grab our members and we grab the experts in the group, and when someone's going off a certain topic, we find the expert for that topic, have them teach a class on it, and that goes up on our curriculum. So I think it's paramount, especially for individuals, but also for companies that are just looking to say, I've brought in a new employee. How do I onboard them? How do I how do I train them up for what they're going to do? That's what we've set this up for, is to be able to train the industry, taught by professionals in the industry that are experts in those groups.
That's great. Thank you so much. And you can obviously get more information at DSF. But I will ask one more question. We have time for this one last one. Tim asks, he wanted you to expand about the licensed content feeds, and maybe you can talk a little bit to the comparison or advantages to other types of content that you might feature, and obviously, maybe what the advantages of licensed content feeds would be.
Licensed content, I mean, anytime you get into weather or news feeds or those kinds of things, it all pretty much is licensed content. There are a lot of people out there, and we've actually got a course on this that's taught by a feed provider that, a lot of people think that they're free, and that I can just go on to CNN.com and subscribe to their feed. Well, that's not quite the case. When you put it on a screen, they will eventually shut it down. So the licensed feeds are the way to go to get it from the right source, but also you're getting correct information, you're getting consistent information, and it's going to constantly be updated. So as far as other types of content, there's your feeds, but there's also your custom contents created by your content creators. So I'm a huge believer in content. Within the company that I work in, we do a lot of training on just content creation, how to create engaging content, whether it's videos or images, whether it's interactive, those kinds of things. So you got that type of content, then you have your curated stuff that's coming through feeds. I hope that answers sort of his question, but yes, I think it's crucial.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Wayne. And you added so much value talking a little bit about the content. And you did give a little bit of an overview, but I can bet that all the content that you have done and produced with your company, you guys have really taken advantage of some of the things that you mentioned today. So with that being said, I appreciate everything that you shared, and we're gonna keep it moving along here.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you.